On today's episode, we are going to explain why Ohio State quarterback Will Howard came out as our highest graded quarterback coming off of round one of the college football playoffs. This and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parsons. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everydayers. And you know I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at TheTalentCode. Can you talk to him, baby?
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydays. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listen is greatly appreciated here. DP, let's kick this thing off, man. We had round one, right, of the first ever college football 12-team playoff. So y'all know what we're going to do, man. We're going to recap it, right, from a draft perspective. We're going to start with grading the QB prospects from the first round of the college football playoffs. Then we're going to talk about what classic segment, money makers and bag fumblers. And then we're going to end this thing off with what? An appearance from Coach K, appearance from Coach DP. We hopping in the locker room. We passing out game balls. DP, let's start with these QB prospects.
You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets, $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Grading these quarterbacks key for the 2025 NFL Draft based on their performance in round one of the CFP. And I got to start at the top. Keith, the guy gave an A to, man, and he earned it, especially after his last game. He earned it. Will Howard for Ohio State, the way he played against Tennessee, this is that's what Ohio State needed. That's technically that's what they needed against Michigan, right? You know what I mean? But we got in the playoffs, so I can't be mad at him, right? He's 24 of 29, 311 yards passing, average over close to 11 yards per attempt and per attempt. His QBR is 98.8. He had 2 passing touchdowns. He had the 1 interception. He used his legs a couple times to get out of trouble and scramble. He looked so confident. It was one, I think it might have been, he threw his hands up in celebration after he threw, I think it was a touchdown to Jeremiah Smith, which was his first. And I think what they did is crazy because I feel like they might have listened to the pod a little bit, Keith, because I talked about it like, hey, let's get Emeka Egbuka going to just settle him in. Let's get the quick game going, settle him down, and allow him to then pick the defense apart. And especially with that they have a good secondary Tennessee, they had a good defensive line in Tennessee, but still, yet he was able to just to only have five incompletions in that game. Like, he played so well. I give him an A, man. Like, they don't win that game without Will Howard playing at a high level.
Yeah, no, because I think people were paying attention to the trenches, right? And Ohio State handled the pass rush, but also it wasn't I didn't take it early on as a situation where the run game was dominant for Ohio State, right? It was Will Howard distributing the football to all of the playmakers. Like you said, getting Emeka Egbuka involved, right? Early on, they got Jeremiah Smith involved. It felt like early on in the season, we've seen a Jeremiah Smith highlight reel, right? And then as the season went on, it's I don't know, they almost had an identity crisis offensively, and they kind of just went away from him, right? But I think they went in time, they might have had some time to regroup and say, you know what? Let's just get back to our basics, right? What are we really good at? We got 2 good wide receivers, and then we'll funnel that. And then like you said, Will Howard made the plays, DP, and I would say this, that he elevated, and we're not at stock up yet, but he elevated his stock from the perspective of he made some NFL throws last night too, right? Like, yeah. I think that was the other thing, that he was precise with the football and accurate with the football. So that's what I found impressive. You want to continue? How you want to continue grading the quarterbacks?
Yeah, no, I mean, and real quick on your point, I think you talked about it at the closing of the Will Howard point. He didn't look like a game manager last night.
No,
it didn't look like the training wheels were still on. It looked like they just let him play ball. and that offense benefited from it. Keith, next up, our guy over there in Clemson, Cade Klubnik. Keith, I gave him an A-, man. Like, you talk about a guy that if he doesn't play the way he played, that game looks totally different, Keith. Like, it's not a 14-point loss. It's a 30-point loss. Like, you had no run game. Phil Maffa really couldn't go. They showed him a couple times on the broadcast with the band trying to loosening up and activate that shoulder. And for him, it's probably a good thing that they're not playing anymore, because now he can just focus on getting that surgery and getting healthy for the NFL in the NFL draft, right? Depending on how long the recovery time is. But Cade Klubnik was 26 of 43, 336 yards passing, almost 8 yards per attempt, 3 passing touchdowns, right? Like he did everything he needed to do in this game. It's like you can't, when you look at the way he played, you look at the numbers, you can't ask for more. I gave him an A-, man. You could not ask for more from Cade Klubnik. Like, not having Phil Maffa hurt them in the red zone. That last drive that could have cut it down to 7. When you don't have 6'2", 235, dotting the I behind your quarterback, where you could just run that hammer up the gut. Don't get me wrong. That deep, you call it Broughton, and that interior defensive line was stout. Like, that's one of the best defensive lines in college football. But I think with Phil Maffa healthy, they convert that 4th and 1 at the goal line. They convert that, Keith. But you don't have that guy back there.
Yep, and that play would have made it a 1-score game, right? And I think
like 10 minutes left, I think.
Yeah, with the game, and this was a common theme probably for all of these college football playoff games, right? Like, the home team got out quick. You know what I'm saying? And then now it was a matter of the away team could battle back. Clemson, Cade Klubnik battled back because he made good plays. So I agree with you, DP. A really good performance from Cade. I thought it was the optimism that you seen with Cade. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you left this and you leave this season being very optimistic about his future.
100%, Keith. What grade, when you look at that game, what grade? 8? I mean, of course, we know it's not gonna be no F or not, but
I'll go a solid B+. I'll go a solid B+ on that. I thought it was a good. I just thought it was a good overall performance by him.
No, for sure, absolutely. Coming up next, man, Riley Leonard, Keith, from Notre Dame. When you look at that game, they outmatched Indiana, right? And in the trenches, we knew that was going to be a problem for Indiana, but he played a solid game overall. He had a really dope deep ball, really nice deep ball. That almost went for a touchdown. I think it was to Jordan Faison. It was like 44, almost 50 yards, just on the dot, on the line, just accurate ball placement. And like I said, that was one of the parts of his game that's been improving all season. When you looked at that game, Keith, and his performance, what grade do you give Riley Leonard?
Yeah, can I go? And this is ebbs and flows of the game, right? And kind of just how things played out. I'm gonna go with a C+, because I don't think he did anything to hurt the team, right? But also, like, you look at it, I think he threw for like right at 200 yards. It just wasn't his football game, in the sense of the fact of this is about them running the football, dominating the trenches, playing good defense, and smothering Indiana to where they couldn't do anything, right? Like, it just wasn't his football game. And it's not a bad thing, but I can't give that performance A+ neither and say that, like, hey, he made all the throws, he did this, he went 5 wide, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't do that. So I have to give him a C+, but I thought it was good, right? Like, in Riley Leonard, you talked about him obviously breaking out of his shell. It's just that game, like, you put that one in a vacuum. That one was more of a game manager-esque game, but that's not his fault, right? Like, that's just how the game plan went.
Yeah, I think that was a game script, like you said, the game plan and how they wanted to run they wanted to dominate. They came out in this game. It was like below 30 degrees. Yep. Like, we're going to run the ball. Like, we're going to see if Indiana is physical enough in the trenches. Now, I will say this, like Michael Kamara and that defensive line, they did it pretty solid. Outside that 98-yarder that they gave up, you know what I mean? Where Jeremiah Love is that's a 10-6, 100-meter champion, what I mean, in high school. Like, that just is what it is. They did a pretty solid job against the running in the trenches, but at the end of the day, like, that's what Notre Dame came in this game to do. Is like, we're not trying to throw it all over the yard and have a 400 passing yard day. We want to punch you in the mouth. And do you have a punch back? And Indiana offense, their defense, for the most part, they fought back. We'll get to that offense and Curtis Rourke in just a little bit. I agree with you. I give Riley Leonard a C+. He didn't do anything to hurt him. He wasn't outstanding. He was just good enough.
Yep, I agree with DP. Let's do this, man. Let's go ahead and transition right now so that way we don't have to rush the next two quarterbacks because I feel like it's intriguing storylines about that. So coming up next, man, we're going to discuss Quinn Ewers, Curtis Rourke, and hand out the draft grades for those guys from their playoff performance this past weekend.
Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. If you love watching the game, you're going to love Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Whether it's football, basketball, or any of your favorite sports, Prize Picks makes your holidays bigger and brighter. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, Prize Picks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. Again, guys, they make it easy. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. Just download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you play just $5. Prize Picks, run your game. Quinn Ewers, Keith, I gave him a C+. I felt like the same way we talked about with Riley Leonard. I watched that game and I was like, this was an overall pretty clean performance from Quinn. And he just managed the game. Now, he did have, of course, the interception, which the blame is 50-50. He ran a whip route, but you let him way too far inside. And I think the receiver was expecting the ball on the numbers where he could just catch, turn, and run. Quinn was leading them, and it just looked like a miscommunication. So it was like 50-50 on that blame. He threw one that Avion Terrell almost got, but it was like really low. Overall, he managed the game. He got the ball out quickly. He got the ball to the open guy. He didn't do too much. And what I felt like, and I looked at it and I was like, you know what? This is kind of my projection for Quinn. Quinn's more of a game manager type quarterback. And what did Steve Sarkisian do? This wasn't the kickoff temperature was like 61 degrees. This wasn't no 30 below game. Like, this was a fairly good weather game. Steve Sarkisian said, I did not expect that, to run nearly 300 yards against that defensive line for Clemson. So they just went ahead and just told Quinn to manage the game. I give him a C+. He didn't hurt them. He did enough to win the game. And he orchestrated, operated the offense.
Yeah, I'm with you from what happened, right? And I think it was another very similar to the Notre Dame situation. I think collectively as a team, they took off on Clemson early, right, to where Quinn was not asked to do a lot of stuff. With this game, though, DP, I think not the issue, right, but the part of the problem is they have a lot of lost yardage, meaning that a lot of because I think Avion Terrell by himself had 3 penalties, right? Like through pass interference penalties. So you get what I'm saying? Like, that's 45 yards one way or the other that I don't want to say wasn't earned, but it's not going to count in a box score for rushing or passing, right? Like if you had 45, maybe 60 more yards to Quinn and things like that. So I think he did what he had to do, but I agree with you from the projection. That's just where I'm falling at with Quinn. I'm looking at him and saying, probably one of the smartest quarterbacks in this draft, right? He's played a lot of football, highly experienced. I'm not going to ask him to put the entire franchise on his back. I want him to go to a good situation, good play calling, right? And he can, and I feel like he can thrive, right? Like he could be a guy that threw for 300 yards in an NFL game, but there's some games where he's going to give you 205, right? And you got to just have the ancillary pieces around him to kind of insulate and protect him. I'm not drafting him to set my ceiling, right? I'm setting the ceiling with my roster and then asking him. He's what we always say, the what is it? The trailer, the hitch. He's a hitch, right? He's a hitch guy. And there's nothing wrong. I think he's the prime definition of a hitch guy. You get the back and you get the front end working in good. He could come in and keep everything connected. And I think that's what he did for Texas. And I think this DP, if Texas plays like this, you're looking at, in my opinion, the best team in college football. When they're rolling, they're the best team in college football, because we're not even talking about their running backs and everything else. But I know it's one more quarterback, DP, that we have to talk about in Indiana, so we can get to him.
Curtis Rourke, Keith. A D. He gets a flat out D. I didn't want to go to F because he, late in that game, got the 2 touchdowns in the fourth. He was able to kind of battle back a little bit, but he was 20 of 33, 215 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, an interception. It was just you talked about lost yardage for the Texas offense. It was kind of just not empty. It was literally lost yardage. Like he was throwing. They gave him 101. Like they gave him 101. Now that secondary is talented over there in Notre Dame. Like even without Benjamin Morrison, that's a talented secondary. Gave him 101, and he kept throwing the back shoulder. I'm like, Curtis, if you throw it over the top and lead him 101, give your guy a real chance. He was not doing that. The interception, he turns down what was going to be an open route on the sideline on a curl route, like a curl or a comeback route. Guy was open. Pivots back to the middle of the field, throws it into triple coverage, and Xavier Watts picks it off for a 6th interception on the season. So, yeah, for me, Curtis Rourke, just you dig yourself a hole on the road. That's what this playoff is different. Like, it's not you're on the even playing field and your fans are there. It's half and half. No, you're on the road. Like, you're at that team. You're dealing with their crowd. You're dealing with their stadium, their weather. You can't put yourself in the hole like that. Not your offense, man. He did not play good football in this game. He didn't look, even when the pressure wasn't there, he just was making bad reads. And I'm like, you didn't do this all season when you were protected. You made the right read. That was your thing. And the Kirk Cousins comps are very apropos, in my opinion. I think they fit very well. I think he might be a taller version or a bigger version of Kirk Cousins. I think he's taller than him. But yeah, like I think he could be a starting level quarterback. But similar to Quinn Ewers, he's more of a hitch. It's going to be based on, okay, what do we put around you? What do we have?
So I have a question. Do you even think that he's more of a trailer than a hitch? Because the reason I asked that, DP, is because I understand the highs, right? Like the last game of the season, boat race produced 66-0, right?
Yeah.
Then you got 3 weeks to prepare. And outside of that fourth quarter, DP, that you talk about, right, where they went on that run, he was probably sitting at 100 and some yards passing. And then, so that's one big time matchup. And then your next big time matchup against Ohio State, 66 yards passing, right? And I was stuck in between placing all of the responsibility on his shoulders, or is this team just severely outmatched in these matchups, right? Like which one is it? And that's what I think I'm gonna have to try to find the balance, right? Like, and I think that with this game, it's gonna have to go a part of his resume, right? Because you're gonna have to, like, when you're trying to give him a grade, you have to watch this game to be like, okay, cool, to kind of not set the ceiling so high to be like, man, I wonder if he can be my franchise quarterback. It's going to be difficult because, like I said, the swings of you boat racing people 66-0, right? And you dominate people, and then you get in this game and you just look totally outmatched for the second time every time you face a top 10.
They were outmatched in the trenches. Like the games that they struggled in, the Michigan game, the Ohio State game, this game. The O-line, is not great. Like, it's not even a good O-line. Like, when you're playing lesser competition or competition on your level, yeah, you look good in the trenches. When you start facing first round dudes, it's a total different ball game now. You're facing those athletes, those power players. So I think it's just an overall, like, the team they had a great record, but they were outmatched in that matchup. Like, they just did not have the guys. Elijah Surratt's their best receiver. They don't have a lot. And it's just like, I kind of feeling it was going to happen. I'm like, man, if they don't come out and just ball out early, it's going to be a tough game for them, man. It's going to be a tough game. But Keith, moneymakers, who really helped themselves, in your opinion? Now that we're done with the quarterbacks, who actually helped themselves?
Yeah, looking at it, first of all, I was about to text you this weekend, because I was about to say, who wants to go in the second round, right? Because remember, I talked about that in regards to Barron Sorrell and Blake Miller, and literally, I think it was like the first 10 plays, right? Barron Sorrell had a sack on Blake Miller, and it was like, he wants to go in the second round, right? And so I look at Barron Sorrell as a guy that made himself some money. Gunnar Helm, DP, as a tight end, flying under the radar a little bit, I think, in his draft class. Don't think he's a top end tight end, maybe, right, as far as athleticism, But the question is, how does he comp to a guy like Mason Taylor or something, right? That's getting a lot of steam and a lot of buzz. So I'm gonna just point out those two guys immediately. And one other guy, Jack Sawyer from Ohio State. Played some good football, looked like the leader of a team, the leader of the defense. He had the whole flag situation, but he came out and played, right? Like you make a statement like that I'm ready to go to war, and you better be ready to go to war when it counts. So
No, 100%.
those three guys.
I like that kid. I mean, like, just looking at it overall, like, man, this was a kind of telling weekend. You know what I mean? We got to see a lot of guys either step up or step out in a sense. I got Travion Henderson. Like, we talked about the Quinshon Judkins thing last week. Travion Henderson, 10 carries, 80 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Of course, Judkins, they're using him as like a battering ram. And I don't think he should come out in the draft. I don't think he should declare. I think he should go back and get back to playing, like, go back to that Ole Miss version of yourself. Like, I don't think entering the draft after this season is the best idea. Not in this RB class.
Yeah, so it brings on the question, and we'll say this, like, maybe we need to have like some type of transfer portal, like the NFL draft prospect, right? Like some type of matchup transfer portal thing, because it brings on the question of, should he go back to Ohio State if that's how you're going to be used again, right? Like, do you need to go somewhere where you're going to be the feature back and you're going to be the guy first down, second down, and third down, and guarantee yourself, I'm getting 20 plus carries a game, right? So we need to have a show like that. Talk about some of these guys and potential to go back and hitting the transfer portal and stuff like that. But DP, let's go ahead and get this appearance, man. Go throw on that coaching hat, wear your whistle at, get your play sheet. We're getting an appearance from Coach K, Coach DP. We hopping in the locker room. We passing out game balls. Coming up next.
The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish this season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's thrilling. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Again, that's FanDuel.com to join today. Make every moment more with FanDuel, and official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Coach K, Coach DP, it's time to hand out our round 1 college football playoff game ball. Keith, I'm going. It was a couple guys. You know what? I got to stand pat to who I am. I'm a running backs guy. I got to go give it to the 2 running backs at Texas, Jadon Blue, and Quintravion Wisner. Like 14 carries for Jadon Blue, 446 yards rushing, 2 rushing touchdowns. Quintravion Wisner, 15 carries, 110 yards rushing, 2 rushing touchdowns. Every time Clemson made it, like, got close, and it's like they scored, and they're making a close to a 1-score game. At one point, they did cut it to a 1-score game. The very next drive, Steve Sarkisian said, I got Quinn Ewers, but I'm running this football. And he pounded them. And they went like 73 yards off, I think, the first play from scrimmage. And I was like, that's how you separate the game. Because if you go 3 and out right there, Clemson's offense is rolling. Now they get to tie the game up. Now you in a tied game, and it's close in the fourth quarter. Steve Sarkisian, no, we're not doing that. We've been dominating you in the trenches all game. And these 2 running backs, man, they don't win this game without those 2 guys. The way that they carried the rock, how physical they were, the explosiveness. And I didn't get a chance to mention the kind of stock down back fumbles. That second level of Clemson's defense, Barrett, Carter, I don't know where those guys were at in the run game. Like, I don't know where they were at. Like, you needed to be able to fill run lanes, stop those guys from getting into the teeth of your defense and then breaking off into the second and third level at full speed. It was that sometimes I looked at the running backs and they were like, yeah, I'm untouched. Now I've hit top speed, and both of these guys have speed, especially Blue. Blue might be a 4.4.43 type of guy. And I remember them talking about him coming into the season being one of the fastest dudes in that running back room. So I give it to the two running backs from Texas, man. Well, I almost went with our guy, quarterback Will Howard, but I got to stand true to who I am. I'm a running backs guy. Give my love to the Texas running backs. Those dudes dominated that game. Also, the offensive line.
Yeah, no, DP, you kept on brand with that. First of all, I agree with you with the Texas running backs. And the thing is that's adding another element to them. They're versatile because they could catch the ball out of the backfield too. And not only just like on swing routes, but they could get vertical on you on wheel routes. So it's like, oh, shoot, like who's matching up with these guys, right? Like they can do that. But DP, you said you're on brand, right? With your running backs. I'm going to be on brand with my pick, right? Defensive guy. I'm going with Penn State defense, right? The offense, in my opinion, for Penn State was not off to a hot start, right? But Penn State's defense made play after play after play. Like they smothered this SMU offense that people said was like, hey, one of the most high-powered, high-flying. We talked about this, right? Like the matchup is going to be, can y'all control Penn State in the trenches? Because they're good, right? Like they're not just okay, they're really good. And they showed you. And they had what I think, looking at the stats, it was 2 pick sixes, right? And they had a total of, I believe it was three total sacks, right? So 3 sacks, 2 pick sixes, smothering the wide receivers, right? That's a day at the park, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you say, like that's a hell of a game by a defense, and they led the way. They led the charge for a big time game. You at home, Happy Valley Stadium, right? You get first college football playoff home game. James Franklin. Everybody says he can't win a big one. The thing is this, that maybe we didn't have a lot of faith, and we was like, okay, Penn State should win this easily, but when you're favored that much, sometimes the pressure is on you, right, to be able to deliver. And they didn't worry about, hey, offensively, Drew Aller, go look like the Drew Aller that you look like against Oregon. The defense said, you know what? We didn't play well against Oregon because if we hold teams to 20 points, we win that Big Ten championship game. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to dominate SMU, play lights out. And they did it. This performance outside of the Tennessee game, which I as much as I don't want to say Tennessee looked outmatched as much as I want to say they looked out of whack, right? That's how I feel like that. The Penn State SMU matchup to me, it looked outmatched, right? Like you could just tell that like the wide receivers had trouble getting open, like the O-line had trouble blocking them. Like it looked like one team was just bigger, stronger, faster on the football field.
No, 100%. Like Kevin Ginger, because I had to host for Locked On Penn State's Locked On podcast. They do a live reaction after the game, and I helped like host that, and we talked about it. Like Kevin Jennings looked he looked young. He just looked young. The spotlight was too big. The lights were too bright. There were times where he was, and it felt like every time he scrambled or bailed a pocket, even when it was clean, he bailed to his right. Like he was bailing to his right almost the entire time. And even when they had like the balls on the right hash, I'm like, dude, you're bailing to the boundary. You're bailing to the short side of the field. You don't have much room to escape if you go that way. He kept going that way. And like the pass rush for whether it was Danny Dennis Sutton, who I think had 2.5 sacks in this game, right? I think DeLuca had like 1 or 2 picks. And they just were so disruptive. They boxed them in. And like you said, I love the way you phrased that. They suffocated them. Like they was like, we're not allowing you to spread us out to get Brashard Smith in the run game going. We're not about to let you like get on the fast track. You're gonna have to deal with us, like, and the physicality that we bring in sub 30-degree weather. It was like 27 at kickoff, and our Locked On host who was there said it was like on the field, the temperature on the field was about 15 to 18, so it was freezing. And this is a team that's what SMU is in Dallas. Like this is a team that's not used to that cold weather. Like, and so they just look, like you said, look outmatched. They just looked like the spotlight was too bright for them, man. First time in the playoffs, expectations were big. They didn't get it done, but that Penn State defense was suffocating. Like they bear hugged them. They didn't let them go. It was like big brother versus little brother. You know what I mean? I'm an oldest of 3 boys. That bear hug, you're like, hey, no, you're not getting free. You're not getting free.
Yep, DP, I just wonder if Bama, South Carolina, Ole Miss, or Miami would have looked better. That's all I got to say. That's all I got to say with DP. That wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL
God.
Draft Podcast. I just want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listen is greatly appreciated here. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers on tomorrow's show. Perfect Prospect Spotlight. Nicholas Singleton, the explosive running back from Penn State. I got just a team, maybe in the first round, that should go ahead and put that card in. We're going to talk about that on tomorrow's show, so come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.